Hey guys, it's Dave coming to you from the paddock here in Southern Maryland. It is Monday. It's Monday afternoon early. It's like 1 o'clock. I left all my mics at home, so I'm just going to do it like this. I think my voice will carry just fine. My God, it's a perfect day out there. It's like 75 degrees, a touch of breeze. I got to get home and do my dog yard cigar. It's too nice to be sitting in here. But hey, a little fun for a minute. I'm going to do a completely unrelated thing. So the whole point of this is to read chapter 9 out of this book. But I'm going to divert you and show you some car fun here for 1 minute. So I got the Cobra de-winterized ready because it's such a perfect time out there. Sasha be looking good riding shotgun in this. So I'm just going to divert you for it's a 1 minute video and we'll come back and read. I got my Cobra started up. Good spring vehicle, big block 454, side pipes. That's a great way to burn yourself right there. Sounds good though. Alright guys, chapter 10 of this book is called Anti-American Claims. And it's a little bit of a discussion of what we hear out there in the world, both unfortunately here in the US too, but you know, it certainly comes from other types of governments, types of cultures, but I think we're hearing more and more of it in here. So I'm going to read this to you. As you can tell, I've got a lot of things highlighted in it, so hopefully it's not too long a video, but here we go. Chapter 9, Anti-American Claims. In every age there is much human discontent, and in nearly every age there arises some revolutionary movement which takes advantage of that discontent. We would be smug and silly to deny that there are reasons for discontent with modern life. It is not ordinarily poverty that creates discontent. For the great majority of people usually have been poor and yet reasonably contented with their lot. It is not lack of wealth that necessarily produces modern discontent and opens the gates to revolutionary movements. What really creates discontent in the modern age, as in all ages, is confusion and uncertainty. People turn to radical doctrines not necessarily when they are poor, but when they are emotionally and intellectually distraught, when faith in their world is shaken, when old rulers and old forms of government disappear, when profound economic changes alter their modes of livelihood, when the expectation of private and public change becomes greater than the expectation of private and public continuity, when even the family seems imperiled, when people can no longer live as their ancestors lived before them, but wander bewildered in new ways, then the radical agitator of one persuasion or another has a fertile field to cultivate. And I think we see that in America today. We see some of these things. Profound economic changes alter their forms of livelihood. I think we see that today. And when even the family seems imperiled, I think we certainly see that today. And when people can no longer live as their ancestors lived, which means, I think particularly the younger generations here at 60, I was born in the last year of the boomers, so I'm officially one of the youngest boomers in the United States. But all the subsequent generations, I think, and I see my kids in their mid-20s now thinking, I can never attain what you attained, Dad. I mean, our generation we can't see our way to that level of success anymore. So I think a lot of these things are coming true, and now usually the rebellion, the radical agitator of one persuasion or another has fertile field to cultivate. I think that describes perfectly where we are today. Roughly parallel with these revolutionary technological changes in civilization have come social and intellectual changes equally catastrophic, such as the decay of established religions and moral beliefs, the malfunctioning of old political institutions, and an immense increase in population over much of the world. It is no wonder that men and women have found it difficult to adjust themselves to this giddy change. But to turn the world upside down in resentment at the world's confusion is no remedy. We can discern in history other such ages of confusion produced by rapid change, such as the 5th century before Christ in Greece and the 1st century before Christ in Rome. People embrace fantastic proposals when they are bewildered and insecure. The Nazis came to power in Germany, the most prosperous and energetic and best schooled of European nations, upon the wave of this confused discontent. The communists of Russia took advantage of the Russian defeat in the First World War to impose themselves upon that immense country. When people have lost their accustomed beliefs and their established ways of life, whether they are rich or poor, they tend to seek some political religion, some fanaticism which promises them peace of body and mind. It holds forth to the confused and discontented the utopia of a classless society in which all material wants will be supplied without personal responsibility, in which change will have been abolished. I think we're there now. I think a lot of people hold this to be true. It holds forth to be confused and to the discontented the utopia of a classless society. I think you're seeing people say, hey, we should get rid of classes. We should get rid of the rich and the poor, and everyone should be the same, in which all material wants will be supplied without personal responsibility. And I think that applies very well to today's Western world, particularly in the U.S. Philosophically and historically speaking, the ideological utopian is mad, but that fact does not diminish his appeal to a great many people. Utopian ideologues promise what neither they nor anyone else can perform. That is, they promise to make human nature and society perfect by changing laws and social institutions. I think we have lived that for the last decade. For true communism is hopelessly impractical, running contrary to everything we know about human nature and society. So it is important to understand what manner of men most revolutionaries are, and what doctrines they profess, and what arguments they employ to make converts, and particularly what accusations they make against the United States. Communists are not seeking truth. They are seeking power. We're going to move into two types of revolutionary. Number one, the naive or sentimental revolutionary who believes that something is hopelessly wrong with life as we know it, and that the revolutionary agenda actually can provide the remedy for all the ills to which humanity is heir. Though such a person is a dangerous dreamer, he may be sincere. Wherever a revolutionary party comes actually to power, such sentimental revolutionaries quickly are eliminated by their more realistic colleagues as utopians. And I think again we're there. We're living this now, where a lot of the people who loved the last administration and the moves to open borders and just allow everybody in and just kind of let things happen the way they're supposed to happen, I think they're sincere. I don't think all of them are bad intentions. I think they're hopelessly naive. So I think this applies very well to today. And I also like the argument that those are the people that are eliminated first when their ideals get into power. The second type of revolutionary, the realistic, practical revolutionary, who may employ humanitarian phrases to win converts, but whose real aim is pure power. Doesn't that sound like the last several years? These realistic revolutionaries constitute the majority of members of any revolutionary party. They are not really concerned with improving the state of existing society or with lessening the confusion and disorder which form the recruiting areas for them. So they talk about other leaders that are still less scrupulous and are willing to sacrifice everything in our civilization, including their own honesty, for the gratified lust of absolute power in their own hands and the hands of their clique. How's that sound versus what we've been dealing with the last few years? Let's read that. Others are still less scrupulous, are willing to sacrifice everything in our civilization, including their own honesty, for the gratified lust of absolute power in their own hands. Wow, that just sounds like what we've been living. The revolutionaries have a track record. So how is it that in many countries, revolutionary radicals still make converts, and almost everywhere in the world they contrive to maintain an effective party organization, openly or underground, despite repeated disclosures of the inconsistency between their professions and their performance? The answer seems to be that the revolutionary movement is greatly assisted by popular ignorance and popular envy. So he's saying that even though none of these revolutions have ever worked or produced a better society, then how come they keep getting chosen over time? And I think the answer seems to be that the revolutionary movement is greatly assisted by popular ignorance and popular envy. And again, I think this is exactly what we face in the Western world and in the U.S. today. But even in their dealings with the principal Western powers, the communists were able to count upon a considerable degree of historical and political ignorance among the citizens of free nations. Ouch! Ouch! Even in their dealings with principal Western powers, the communists were able to count upon a considerable degree of historical and political ignorance among the citizens of free nations. The docility of the citizens of free nations left and leave many among them prey to anti-Western revolutionary movements. Minds ignorant of principle easily are vanquished by ideology. Minds ignorant of principle easily are vanquished by ideology. And where the abuse of ignorance will not suffice, the revolutionaries resort to the vice of envy. Envy, one of the most powerful and subtle of human emotions, is easily roused and difficult to repress. A man is not always aware of his own envy. Why should anyone else be more rich or famous or popular than I am? In all of us, there stirs a little of this impulse. It is easy for a good many people to conjure up a mental image of some rich, bad man who has to be shot because he stands in the way of the people's progress. It is so hard for some people to confess to themselves that possibly the revolutionary ideologues are not kindly liberals who occasionally become a trifle impetuous. Envy, inverted admiration, is one of the most disastrous impulses of our modern age. The abuse of ignorance and the rousing of envy are the hardened revolutionary's usual tools. The revolutionary deliberately cultivates obscurity in language in order to make his argument sound scientific and profound. Ouch! Boy, does that point where we are right now. The revolutionary deliberately cultivates obscurity in language in order to make his arguments sound scientific and profound. How many times have we heard over the last several years, follow the science, when the science was completely full of shit and contrived? All right, so now we're on to measures to accomplish revolution. All private property. Okay, to accomplish revolutionary objectives, Marx and Engels listed in the Communist Manifesto the program of action that must be undertaken. These are pretty scary. All private property and land was to be confiscated. A heavy progressive income tax was to be put into effect. The right of inheritance was to be abolished. The property of all opponents was to be confiscated. The state was to monopolize banking and credit. The state was to monopolize communication and transportation. The state was to acquire factories and other means of production, and to improve the soil through collective farming. Industrial armies were to be formed, with conscription of everyone for manual labor. Agriculture and manufacturing were to merge. The state was to monopolize education and unite schooling with industrial production. Ouch, that's pretty dangerous stuff. Revolutionary violence. But their primary means for destroying the church, the family, the community, lawful governments, private associations, and private property has been violence. Revolutionaries rarely have come to power peacefully, and they rarely tolerate political opposition or permit free elections. Their favorite method for attaining power is through subversion, working their way into the government of a country gradually through intimidation and deceit, under the pretext of being merely one of several parties in a democratic state, and then, when sufficiently entrenched, resorting to the murder or imprisonment of all their opponents. In any country, including Russia and China, the members of the Revolutionary Party have formed only a very small percentage of the adult population. When the communists seized power in Russia and China, they represent only a tiny fraction of the total population of those nations. Yet they triumphed in very short order once they had obtained control of the reins of government. The liquidation, that is the murder or imprisonment of all their opponents or of anyone who might remotely challenge their power, from monarchists to socialists, from cardinals to shopkeepers, was their first act once they obtained control over troops and police. The direct passion of most revolutionaries, in short, is hate. Appealing to the diabolical impulses in human nature, the revolutionary movements arrayed class against class and man against man. Once triumphant, they perpetuate their clique in power by a system of police spies and frequent purges of deviationists from their own ranks. Fear and suspicion torment everyone, from the most obscure working people to the party leaders themselves. In the immediate background always looms up the vast concentration camp to which are transported whoever may be accused of disloyalty towards the revolutionary regime or even of lukewarmness towards its policies. Communism society is a living hell. Many revolutionary radicals seek to divert attention from their dismal caricature of utopia by incessantly attacking, through elaborate propaganda, the alleged failings of free countries. The United States being the present chief check upon the radical ideologues' ambition, the accusations of their propaganda are directed with special intensity against America. Some of these charges may be summarized. America is materialistic. America is imperialistic. I'm not reading you the whole thing. 3, America is capitalistic, and American businessmen grow rich upon the labor of the American poor. America is unjust. Minorities and even majorities are repressed and bullied. America is decadent. Public and private morality and culture are sinking. And there are other charges, but these 5 may suffice to illustrate the revolutionary methods and propaganda. Although nearly all Americans feel that these accusations are unfounded, too often Americans have failed to reply coherently to such charges. God, did you hear that? Although nearly all Americans feel these accusations are unfounded, too often Americans have failed to reply coherently to such charges. That's our job, by the way. The revolutionaries' intention is to give America a bad conscience and to give the United States a bad reputation in the rest of the world. To confuse, to obscure the revolutionary aim by a barrage of petty and reckless insults to the United States. The radical propagandists are satisfied if, though failing to convince altogether, they succeed in establishing doubts about American society in men's mind. For the objective is not so much to win adherents as simply to weaken loyalty to the United States and to dishearten American allies. Tomorrow, chapter 10, our response to such things. But oh my God, how dangerous does this sound? Guys, that's it. It's chapter 9. Talk to you tomorrow.